last week on Alexander and the Tea Village. In a small, quiet village nestled between rolling hills, a mysterious stranger arrived one foggy morning. The stranger is soaked top to bottom, though it did not rain over the night. The villagers gathered around, their curious eyes fixed on the stranger as they whispered amongst themselves about the odd circumstances. Paul, the village idiot, noticed that mysterious tint to the stranger's clothes, for they were stained crimson. Undeterred, Paul took a step back, his eyes never leaving the stranger, who replied with a faint, enigmatic smile, "It's a long and curious tale, one that might just explain my unexpected visit." He continues, "It's a tale that one would love to discuss over a cup of English breakfast tea." The mention of tea piqued the interest of the villagers, who began to exchange glances, their curiosity outweighing their earlier caution. It must be known that tea, once the villagers' most cherished drink, became a source of animosity and infamy after a local man burned down 3 houses and blamed it on a poor cuppa brew. The memory of that fiery incident still lingered in the minds of the villagers, but the stranger's offer of tea had an intriguing allure, as if it held the promise of redemption for this once beloved tradition. Mrs. Peters, a village elder, was the first to break the silence. "Sorry, sir, but you must know that we have a torturous history with tea, and it is a drink we do not like to consume in these parts any more." The stranger nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of their history. "I respect your sentiments," he said, "and I'm here to make amends, not to bring further trouble. Perhaps you would consider hearing my story first, and then you can decide whether tea deserves a second chance." "No!" screamed Mr. Cole. "We will not be making any exemptions concerning the consumption of tea in this village. You, sir, tell us who you are and why you are here." The stranger, named Alexander, continued, "I am on my way to see my sister. She makes the most delicious rock cakes in the whole country. I was aiming to reach her house yesterday afternoon. However, my car broke down 10 miles back, and there were no houses or people around to help me." As Alexander shared his tale of a broken down car and a long, lonely journey, the villagers' skepticism began to wane. They realized that this stranger might not be connected to their painful history with tea at all. Mrs. Peters spoke up, her voice softer this time. "If you mean no harm and only seek assistance, we can lend a hand. As for tea, well, maybe it's time we reconsider." The villagers seemed to agree with Mrs. Peters' sentiment, but also remained puzzled, as tea was not permitted to be stored in anyone's houses, but at the local bank under 24-hour security. The crowd moved apart, allowing Mrs. Peters to direct Alexander deeper into the village. Just as they were about to reach the village inn, Paul interrupted, squeaking, "Mr. Alexander, you didn't explain the red-stained clothing you are wearing. To a simple man like me, it sure looks a lot like blood. Dun dun dun!" Hey guys, we're back with Storytime Part 2 with ChatGPT. And if you guys watch the summary, you know what's happening in the story. You know there's a well, actually, no, it's not necessarily blood, but you know there's this guy staying in this red liquid, and he's came into this village that doesn't drink tea. But, okay, I think this intro has gone on too long. Let's just start it. Alright, so just like how we did it in the first episode, I'm going to let ChatGPT start actually, no, let me start it, because I think ChatGPT finished the sentence, isn't it? Oh, no, I finished it. Yeah, that's my one. So, yes. So, same like always, we're going to have 10 sentences from ChatGPT and 10 sentences from me. So, without further ado, enjoy. Alright, so the last sentence was, just as they were about to reach the village inn, Paul interrupted, squeaking, "Mr. Alexander, you didn't explain the red-stained clothing you were wearing. To a simple man like me, it sure looks like blood." Alright, so let me just get ChatGPT warmed up. Yo, chat. You got the next line, right? You got the next sentence. Of the story, right? Of course. That is my best friend. Just as they were about to reach the... Oh. No, I mean... You... write the next sentence. It's alright, I forgive you. I forgive you. Alexander's eyes darkened with a hint of sadness as he replied, "You're perceptive, Paul, and you're not entirely wrong." I'm sure we said that earlier in the fucking story. Excuse the cuss words. But actually YouTube allows it if it's not in the first few seconds of the video, so hooray. Alright. Alexander's eyes darkened with a hint of sadness. "You're perceptive, Paul, and you're not entirely wrong." Let's continue with that. You see, just after my vehicle broke down, I was trying to flag down a passing van, passing car. Let's say passing. No, that's after my car broke down. A passing vehicle, but to no avail. I knew it was getting late. I knew it was getting late. It was getting dark. So I knew it was going to start. So I walked. So I began. So I quit this. Task. I don't know. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm sure we can get an editor to edit this afterwards, if it's any good. You see, just after my car broke down, I was trying to flag down a passing vehicle, but to no avail. It was getting dark, so I quit this task and began walking in the search of a nearby settlement. Paul leaned in closer, his eyes wide with curiosity, as Alexander began to recount the events that led to the crimson stain on his clothes. I was walking for almost 2 hours when I came across a creature by the side of the road. It was already getting dark. So I couldn't get a closer look at the animal. So I couldn't get what it was. But I noticed it was deep. Not concentration, it was deep. I was deeply distracted. He's not even looking my way, despite me being within almost arms within almost striking distance. It was then I noticed that the animal was eating something. It was eating something, but I could not. Something. It was eating something, but it was eating something that was hidden by the roadside bush. Alright. They really want me to keep going with the story. The villagers listened intently as Alexander's story took an unexpected turn. Their earlier concerns about tea momentarily forgotten. I forgot the stories about tea. They wondered what he had encountered on the dark and lonely road. Gentlemen and ladies, what I saw, I am hesitant to repeat. But I know, for the safety of this village, you must know. Alexander paused, a somber expression on his face, as he prepared to reveal the unsettling truth of what he had witnessed by the roadside. The villagers held their breath, their curiosity mingling with a growing sense of unease. You see, people, the creature was a fox. The thing was the body of an old man. I have no clue where this is going. That's exactly what I wanted. Collective gasp. A collective gasp rippled through the villagers, and their unease deepened into shock and horror at Alexander's revelation. The tranquility of their village had been shattered by this grim discovery, and questions hung heavily in the air about who the old man was and how he met a gruesome fate. People, the story does not end. Actually, no. People, the story does not end there. Does not end there. Where do you think I should go with the story? I definitely want to do something where Alexander is, I think he's either embarrassed or he's guilty about some things. I think he's definitely done something wrong. What that is, I'm not sure. But what he's saying right now, I want this story to be a lie. So let's see what we can work out. People, the story does not end there. For the old man had an axe. Stuck deeply into his face. Like someone was cutting a cake. It doesn't matter. This isn't going for the Booker Prize. Let's see. The villagers exchanged worried glances, and a sense of dread settled over them as they contemplated the gruesome details of the old man's death. The mystery surrounded Alexander's arrival, and the stained clothing deepened, and they couldn't help but wonder if there was a connection between the two. Oh. So. Oh, what's that guy's name? The old man. Not the old man, the idiot. What's the village idiot's name? Paul, the first to speak. In a stupidly confident chatter replied, "Well, I don't think the fox knows how to use an axe." Alright, I really want to see how ChatGPT reacts to this. Because I definitely know what I'd write after this. But I know how I'd go after this. I'd definitely I'd start like trying to really like break this guy down, but whoops, I mean, yeah, I'd want this guy to get basically murked off by the rest of the village for what he says. But let's see what ChatGPT says. Paul, the first to speak in a stupidly confident chatter, replied, "Well, I don't think the fox knows how to use an axe." A nervous laughter erupted from some of the villagers at Paul's comment, a feeble attempt to break the tension. that's probably the cleverest thing Paul's ever said, but I don't think he meant it like that either. Oh, actually, no, maybe I stupidly confident. Maybe I made him seem a bit more smart than he is. A nervous laughter erupted from some of the villagers at Paul's comment, a feeble attempt to break the tension that had descended upon them. Nonetheless, the disturbing circumstances of the old man's death and the stranger's presence still cast a long shadow over the village. Ah, now who's that? Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole. In an attempt to control the fear. Oh no, in attempt to control the situation. To control Mr. Cole questioned Alexander. Well, did you check the old man clothes for any identification? Well, did you not check for any identification? Alexander nodded, his face grim. Yes, I did. I found a wallet with some identification, but it didn't tell me much. The man's name was Henry, but there was no address or contact information. It was as if he had no home or family. What kind of identification is that? you go to the club and no date of birth, no address. It just says my name is Harry. Mate, they're not letting bouncers ain't letting you in that club, mate. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this old man found on the side of the road, with an axe in his face. His name's Henry. That's his name. An animal a fox was eating his body. Okay, that's where we are so far. Alright, how many messages have we done so far? So 1. Oh, let's just count my ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we've got 3 more. Let's go. Alexander nodded, his face grim. Yes, I did. I found the wallet with some identification, but it didn't tell me much. The man's name was Henry, but there was no address or contact, as if he had no family, home or family. Mr. Cole. Fast. Struck back. Mr. Cole struck back. Well, what did he look like? What? His build? What was he wearing? One can tell a man's status by the clothes he's wearing. Mr. Cole. Looked Alexander up down with a critic's eye. Ooh. Alexander, feeling the weight of Mr. Cole's scrutiny, described the old man in as much detail as he could recall. He was of average build, dressed in tattered clothing that suggested he might have been homeless. His face was weathered, and he had a long white beard. He looked like a man who has seen his fair share of hardship. His face, average build, dressed in tattered clothing. He suggested that he might have been homeless. His face was weathered. Where would you take this now? Okay, so Mr. Cole is questioning Alexander on this old man. I really want Mr. Cole to be quite strict on Alexander. I don't want it to break I don't want him to be persuaded so easily. So I need something different. I need him to be the strict one. I think all the villagers are going to be a bit like, oh yes, we'll just follow along. But I want Mr. Cole to be very strict on Alexander. So let's see what we can do. Oh, Mr. Cole. Pathetic. Mr. Cole. Tell us exactly. This that doesn't tell us much. Oh. No. Okay. So we have a homeless guy called Henry. Nah. I don't want it to sound like a dick. Well, a little bit, but not fully. That doesn't tell me anything. That doesn't tell me much. That doesn't tell me much. Where exactly can we find his body? Alexander provided directions to the location where he discovered the old man's body, deepening the sense of urgency among the villagers. It was clear they needed to investigate further to unravel the mystery behind this unsettling discovery. Oh my god. He's still got blood on his clothes. How the hell? What the hell's happened to with how do we explain? Why has he got blood on his clothes? Do I want Paul to say it again? Or should I say Mr. Cole? Okay, I'm going to forget about that. Oh, what was the lady's name? What was the lady's name? The first thing. Mrs. Peters. Mrs. Peters. This is going to be the final one. Just then. Mrs. Peters. Just there. Mrs. Peters arrived into the middle of the congregation. Into the middle of the group. Into the middle of the congregation. I don't know if that's the right word to use. Arrived into the middle of the congregation. Into the middle of the congregation. With a cheeky smile on her face. With a cheeky smirk. Isn't anyone coming in for supper? Coming in for supper. Mr. Cole, not looking. Sorry, Mr. Cole. Without taking his eyes off Alexander, replied, "Ma'am, get this gentleman a drink, something to eat, and a clean set of clothes. After this, we will drive. We will go out in search. After this, he will. After this, he will need energy. He will need energy. He'll need energy because after this, he will lead us to the body. Dun dun dun. Alright, so I'm just going to give ChatGPT a warning. So, finish your next sentence. Fix next sentences in. I've put sentences here because I've used a lot more than a sentence in quite a few of them. So, okay, finish your next sentences with a cliffhanger. Mrs. Peters. Okay, let's just do this one. So this is the final one. So let's see what's happening at the end of part 2. Just then, Mrs. Peters arrived into the middle of the congregation with a cheeky smirk. Isn't anyone coming in for supper? Why does everyone have the same weird accent? Mr. Cole, without taking his eyes off Alexander, replied, "Ma'am, get this gentleman a drink, something to eat, and a clean set of clothes. He will need energy, because after this, he will lead us to the body." Mrs. Peters nodded and gestured for Alexander to follow her. As he left with her to get some food and fresh clothes, the rest of the villagers exchanged worried glances. They couldn't shake the feeling that this mysterious stranger had brought a disturbing secret to their peaceful village, and the revelation of the body's location weighed heavily on their minds. This is getting pretty interesting now. And to be honest, I think ChatGPT is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, to be honest. I've said a few good things, but it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. So, that is the end of episode 2. If you're enjoying the story, like this video and comment any suggestions of what you want me to include in the next episode, or maybe you just want me to steer the ship with ChatGPT. Maybe you're enjoying the story. If you are, comment your favorite character and what you enjoy about the story. But for fear of this video getting even longer than it is, I'm gonna cut. Ciao.